Imagine walking into your own home, the place that's supposed to be your safe haven, only to find evidence that shatters everything you thought was real. That's how it started for me. My name is Sophia, and this is the story of how I went from being blinded by love to rising up with a power I never knew I had. It all began with a simple lie, but oh, how it grew into a web that nearly destroyed me. But in the end, my revenge didn't just expose his secrets. It transformed my pain into something unbreakable. Stick with me because you're about to hear a tale of betrayal that will leave you questioning every relationship you've ever had. What would you do if the person you trusted most turned out to be a master of deception? Let me take you back to where it all started. I was 28, working as a graphic designer in a bustling city, living what I thought was a dream life. Mark and I had been together for 3 years. We met at a coffee shop. Classic, right? He spilled his latte on my sketchbook, apologized profusely, and before I knew it, we were laughing about it over fresh drinks. He was charming with that easy smile and those deep blue eyes that made me feel like I was the only woman in the world. From that day on, we were inseparable. We'd spend weekends exploring hidden parks, cooking messy dinners in my tiny apartment, and dreaming about our future. Sophia, he'd say, holding my hand, you're my everything. I can't imagine life without you. But looking back, there were signs, tiny cracks in the perfect picture. Mark worked in sales, traveling a lot for client meetings. He'd come home late, smelling faintly of perfume that wasn't mine, but I'd brush it off. It's just work stress, I'd tell myself. He's committed to us. How naive I was. One evening, after a long day at the office, I decided to surprise him with his favorite takeout. He wasn't home yet, so I set the table and waited. That's when his phone buzzed on the counter. I wasn't the type to snoop, but the message preview caught my eye. Can't wait for tonight, babe. Miss you already. My heart dropped. Who was this? I picked up the phone. His password was our anniversary date, how ironic, and scrolled through. Messages from someone named Sarah. Flirty texts, photos of them together, plans for secret getaways. My hands shook as I read further. This wasn't a one-time thing. It had been going on for months. He was living a double life, lying to my face every day. The betrayal hit me like a wave, crashing over me with anger and sadness so deep I could barely breathe. How could he do this? We had talked about marriage, kids, a house with a backyard. Was it all a lie? I confronted him that night. He walked in, saw the food, and smiled until he noticed my tear-streaked face. Sophia, what's wrong? He asked, all innocent. I held up the phone. Who's Sarah? The color drained from his face. He stammered excuses. It's not what it looks like. She's just a colleague. We were joking. But the evidence was there, undeniable. We argued for hours, me screaming through sobs, him denying everything until he couldn't anymore. Fine, it's true, he finally admitted, but it doesn't mean I don't love you. Love? That word felt like poison now. That night I kicked him out. As he packed his bags, begging for forgiveness, I felt a mix of heartbreak and rage. You'll regret this, he muttered on his way out. Regret? Little did he know, this was just the beginning. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering how I'd ever trust again. But in the darkness, a spark ignited, a determination to not let him break me. What if I could turn this pain into power? What if his lies became the fuel for my revenge? As the days turned into weeks, I started piecing together the full extent of his deception. And trust me, it was worse than I imagined. Friends rallied around me, offering hugs and advice. "Move on, Sophia," they'd say. "He's not worth it." But moving on felt too easy. I needed justice. I dove into his online life, social media, emails I still had access to, and uncovered more. Sarah wasn't the only one. There were others, scattered across his travel cities. He was a serial cheater, charming women with the same lines he used on me. The shock turned to fury. How many hearts had he shattered? I couldn't just let him walk away unscathed, but revenge. It had to be smart, not reckless. No destroying property or anything that could backfire. Instead, I thought of exposure, the kind that would leave him speechless and alone. As I sat in my empty apartment, the walls echoing with memories, I made a vow. This betrayal wouldn't define me, it would refine me. Little by little, I started gathering proof, screenshots, timelines, even messages from other women who responded to my discreet inquiries. The web of lies was vast, and I was about to pull the strings. But how? And when? The suspense built inside me, a mix of fear and excitement. Would my plan work, or would it blow up in my face? Before the discovery, our life together seemed like a fairy tale, but now I see the illusions for what they were. Mark and I had built something, or at least I thought we had. We moved in together after a year into a cozy apartment overlooking the city park. Mornings were filled with coffee and kisses, evenings with walks hand in hand. "We're unbreakable," he'd whisper during quiet moments. But were we? As I reflect, those words were just part of his act. I poured my heart into our relationship. I supported his career, even when it meant lonely nights. "Go get that deal, babe," I'd encourage him over the phone. In return, he showered me with gifts, flowers, jewelry, surprise trips. But beneath the surface, cracks were forming. There were the late nights at work events, the phone always face down, the vague answers about his day. "Just boring meetings," he'd say with a shrug. I trusted him blindly, ignoring the nagging doubt in my gut. Why? Because love makes you blind, doesn't it? It wraps you in a warm blanket of denial. One memory stands out, our second anniversary. He planned a romantic dinner at a rooftop restaurant. Candles flickered, stars twinkled above. He got down on one knee, not to propose, but to give me a promise ring. "This is my vow to you, Sophia." Forever. Tears welled in my eyes as I slipped it on. We danced under the moonlight, lost in each other. But later, digging through his secrets, I found out he was texting Sarah that same night. "Wish you were here instead." The thought makes my stomach churn even now. How could someone fake emotions so convincingly? Friends envied us. "You two are goals," my best friend Lisa would say at gatherings. We'd host barbecues, laugh with couples, play board games late into the night. Mark was the life of the party. Charismatic, funny, always knowing the right thing to say. But alone, he'd sometimes snap over small things, like if I questioned his schedule. "Why the interrogation?" he'd bark, then apologize with hugs. Red flags, waving right in front of me, but I waved them away. Work kept me busy too. As a designer, I freelanced on the side, creating logos and websites. Mark encouraged it. "You're so talented, Sophia." But his support fell hollow in hindsight. He was building his own empire of deceit, juggling multiple lives. I started noticing money discrepancies, unexplained charges on our joint account for hotels and dinners. business expenses, he claimed. I believed him, because who wants to think the worst of their partner? The conflict brewed slowly. About 6 months before the big reveal, things intensified. He traveled more, came home distant. Our intimate moments grew rare. He'd cite exhaustion. I'd lie awake, wondering if I was enough. Self-doubt crept in. Am I boring him? Should I change? I tried spicing things up. New outfits, surprise dates, but nothing stuck. One night, after he canceled plans again, I confided in Lisa. Something feels off, I said, voice trembling. She hugged me. Talked to him. It might be nothing, but it was everything. As the trips piled up, so did the lies. He'd say he was in Chicago, but social media tags placed him elsewhere. I didn't check then. Trust, remember? But the emotional toll mounted. Sadness weighed on me like a heavy coat. I'd cry in the shower, hiding my pain. Anger flickered too. Why is he pulling away? Questions swirled, but answers evaded. Little did I know, the storm was about to break. The conflict in our relationship escalated in ways I couldn't ignore anymore. It was like living on a fault line, waiting for the earthquake. Mark's behavior shifted subtly at first, then dramatically. He'd snap at innocent questions like, "How was your trip?" becoming, "Why are you always prying?" His phone became glued to his hand. Passwords changed without explanation. "Privacy, Sophia," he'd say defensively. Privacy in a committed relationship? I started feeling isolated. Our shared friends noticed too. At a group dinner, Mark flirted shamelessly with a waitress while I sat there, humiliated. Later, in the car, I confronted him. That was embarrassing. He laughed it off. You're overreacting. It was harmless, but it wasn't. It chipped away at my confidence. Nights turned sleepless. I'd scroll through old photos, wondering where we went wrong. Sadness enveloped me, a constant companion. Work suffered. I'd stare at my computer screen, designs blurring through tears. My boss pulled me aside. Everything okay at home? I forced a smile. Just tired. But inside, turmoil raged. Anger built, towards him for the changes, towards myself for staying. Why didn't I leave sooner? Fear, I suppose. Fear of being alone, of starting over. One weekend, he said he had a conference in New York. I'll miss you. He kissed me goodbye. But that night, a mutual friend posted a photo from a local bar. Mark in the background, arm around a woman. My heart raced. I called him. He answered cheerily. Hey babe, in a meeting? Liar. I hung up, fury boiling. When he returned, I demanded answers. It was a look-alike, he insisted, gaslighting at its finest. The emotional triggers hit hard. Shock at his audacity, sadness for our lost dreams, anger at the deception. I confided in my sister over coffee. He's cheating, isn't he? She asked gently. Tears flowed. I think so. She urged me to investigate, but I hesitated. What if I was wrong? But deep down, I knew. As weeks passed, evidence mounted. Forgotten receipts for lingerie not my size. Mysterious calls he stepped out to take. The conflict peaked during a fight over finances. Where's the money going? I asked, showing bank statements. He exploded. Stop controlling me. Then stormed out. Alone, I cried, feeling broken. But that night something shifted, a spark of strength. No more, I whispered. The betrayal finally came to light in a way that left me reeling. It was a rainy Tuesday evening. Mark was working late again. I decided to clean the apartment to distract myself from the gnawing suspicion. That's when I found it, a hidden box under his side of the bed. Inside, love letters, photos, even a spare phone. I turned on the spare phone, password guessed easily, his birthday. Messages flooded in from multiple women. Sarah, Jenna, Mia, names that meant nothing yet everything. Last night was amazing, one read. Dates matched his trips. He wasn't just cheating, he was orchestrating a network of lies. Shock paralyzed me. How long? Why me? I sat on the floor sobbing, piecing together timelines. Our vacations? He texted others. Our anniversaries. Double booked emotions. The sadness was overwhelming, like drowning in betrayal. Anger surged too. How dare he? I felt foolish, used. When he came home, I was ready. Explain this, I said, holding the phone. He froze, then tried denial. That's old stuff. But timestamps proved otherwise. The argument was epic. Tears, yells, pleas. I love you most, he claimed. Most? That word stung. He left that night, but not before twisting the knife. You'll never find better. His words fueled my fire. In the quiet aftermath, relief mixed with pain. Relief from the lies, pain from the loss. But this betrayal wasn't the end. It was my awakening. What if I could make him pay by revealing his true self? I didn't wallow long. Instead, I channeled the hurt into action. Alone in the apartment, I started planning. First, gather more evidence. I reached out anonymously to the women from his messages. Surprisingly, some responded. He's been lying to me, too, one said. We formed a group chat. Victims uniting. The plan. Expose him publicly, but smartly. No scandals, just truth. We'd compile stories, screenshots, and post on social media, tagging his work and friends. But timing was key. Suspense built as I imagined his face. I confided in Lisa. This will shut him down. She warned caution, but supported. Days turned to weeks of preparation. Emotional highs and lows, anger driving me, sadness pausing me. Questions kept curiosity alive. Would it work? What if he retaliated? Mark tried contacting me, begging reconciliation. I can change, text read. I ignored, focusing on the plan. Power grew within me. Pain was transforming. As the plan solidified, the day arrived. We synchronized our posts, stories of deceit flooding his networks. I hit share first, heart pounding. Mark's lies exposed, the title read, with proof attached. Notifications exploded. Friends messaged, is this true? His boss called him in. He texted me frantically, what have you done? I replied, the truth. We met at a cafe, neutral ground. He looked defeated. Why? He asked. Because you broke me, I said calmly. Shock on his face, he was speechless. The fallout was swift. Job lost. Friends distanced, other relationships crumbled. Relief washed over me. No more secrets. But suspense lingered. Would he fight back? For now, victory was mine. In the wake of the exposure, life shifted dramatically. Mark moved away, reputation tarnished. I felt empowered, but healing took time. Therapy helped process the emotions, sadness fading, strength growing. New beginnings. I focused on career, traveled solo, rebuilt trust. Friends admired my resilience. You turned pain to power, Lisa said. Occasional doubts arose, but overall, relief dominated. The betrayal scar remained, but it reminded me of my worth. Reflecting on it all, the lesson is clear. Betrayal hurts, but it can forge unbreakable strength. Don't let lies define you. Use them to rise. Trust your gut. Seek justice wisely. And remember, true power comes from within. What doesn't break you makes you stronger. Thank you for joining this journey. May it inspire your own path from pain to power.